talk more about this Eagles versus Rams matchup. Does a tremendous job on NBC Sports Philadelphia. You see him on Birds Huddle, pre- and post-game live, and, of course, has a Super Bowl ring. Mr. Barrett Brooks on the Comcast Business Hotline. How you doing today, Barrett?
Man, I'm great, man. This is playoff week number 2. Let's just keep the party going, man. I'm excited, man. I'm really excited, bro.
I am, too. Now, some people have been calling in talking about what the Rams pass rush did to Darnold, and what I was trying to tell people was that when you're going against Allen, which Allen was able to move well against that defense, Jalen Hurts and other guys that move well, it's not the same as a pass rusher. You played offensive line, obviously, won a Super Bowl playing the offensive line. Could you talk about how much harder it is to pass rush a guy who moves well versus a guy who's really locked in that pocket?
Well, you got a guy that can move well. That means, you can almost get there, and then it turns into a big play. And I think that's what, really puts Jalen apart from, regular quarterbacks like, they just had, just like they played against Love. If the defense knows where you're going to be, if the pass rushers know you're going to be, they just make a party. They just meet at the quarterback. Well, you can't do that with Jalen Hurts because he understands how to get out of the pocket now, and he forces guys to be, all right, I got to stay and probably mush rush them. Mush rush them means they get to a point when they're rushing, and they have to stop at the same level he is. They can't continue to run the hump like they usually and go all the way around him because he can go out there and make a big play. He can get into those running lanes and go for 20 yards, go for 30 yards. So with that, him being that dangerous of a quarterback, you just can't rely on, your pass rush being the ultimate on making sure Jalen Hurts is uncomfortable. He can make you uncomfortable with the big play and the scramble.
Will we see a little bit more dynamic offense this week rather than the vanilla one we saw last Sunday?
Well, you know what? I mean, I think it's all a part of who this Eagles team is. They become dynamic not by what the offense they're playing, but just by the players being dynamic. When you got a running back like, Saquon Barkley and an offensive line like they have, those holes, they get bigger and bigger, as the game goes, longer and longer. The war of attrition takes over. And you let those big guys start leaning on those defensive linemen. Yes, they're good pass rushers, and can, get up the field. But when you got a guy like Jordan Mailata laying on you throughout the consistency of the game, and he's consistently putting his hands on you every single play, you're going to be tired by the end of the game. Going into the second half, you're like, man, this is a long game. And I think that's what makes offense dynamic for the Eagles. It's really plain Jane, but, that's why the second half things start happening because they, war of attrition takes over, and those guys get beat up a little bit. Defensive linemen start getting up a little bit slower. Then you get the big impact plays. And I think that's what they were looking for last week. They didn't, and it started, but it wasn't as consistent we're used to seeing it. I think Jalen, was in a position where towards the end he started becoming more dynamic once he got used to his guys out there and, really got a feeling and a sense of the offense coming back to him, because he was out for so long.
I want to also ask you about the defensive line. I love to talk about the trenches with you. They went with both Milton Williams and a junk mo a lot, and they even used Milton Williams some outside, went with Huff for only a couple of snaps, and they cut down on Davis's snaps as well. Do you think that's a trend that's going to continue, or was that based on the matchup against the Packers?
It was definitely based on the matchup because, Love was sitting back there, and he's not a guy that's going to, move around a lot. You put those fast pass rushing guys in there to get up the field and make them a little uncomfortable up front. And it worked out for him, It really depends on who you have as far as your offense. Now, Williams is pretty good for the Rams. He's a pretty good running back. So you might see a little more Davis. You got a stature back there in their quarterback in Stafford. You might see a little bit more of the, the pass rushers you have with Williams, and guys like that. But it really, goes with really situational football. The Eagles got up on that, up on the Packers team, which allowed, the Packers to start wanting to pass a little more. So then you put your pass rushers in a lot more than your run stoppers. It's really dictated by circumstances on where they are in the game. How many points are on the board, if they're up, if they're down. It really depends on that more so than, them really having a game plan of, all right, Davis is going to play this many reps or Williams is going to play this many reps. It really goes on what the situation is in the game, which really dictates who plays when and who plays, how long.
I got to ask you, they saw the Rams in Week 12. That's fair to say. We saw what the Rams were all about. How much could they have changed, or did they change at all in this time period?
No, I don't think they changed. I mean, they were just getting into who they are as a team when the Eagles played them. They understood that, Williams had to run the ball consistently, which allows them to open up with their play action. That's when they really started taking advantage of Puka Nacua and those guys at the receiver position because, when you run play action, it opens up the middle of the field because those linebackers have to react to the run because he's a pretty good running back. And then that opens up the middle of the field, and that's where Puka Nacua makes his money right in that, area right there. So it really, I'm looking at this game, and they're kind of come with the same thing. They want to run the ball, run off play action, kind of the same game plan that the Packers wanted to do, but they weren't able to do it because they were able to stop the run. Now, Williams is a little more explosive, so they might have, a couple more big plays that they have to deal with. But as long as they keep them one-dimensional, make him drop back pass, then those pass rushers can take over. That's when you'll see guys like Smith and Sweat, those guys taking over and start really rushing the passer consistently, and then things will start opening up. I mean, this. I love the battles that have been going on in the playoffs. Everybody's talking about, these are boring games. These are defensive battles that you're seeing right now. Defenses, win championships, and I think it's starting to change in the NFL, and you have to play accordingly on what's going on in the NFL. They're running the ball consistently and, rushing the passer because guys are, aren't doing that as much as they used to back in the day.
We're speaking with Barrett Brooks. He does a tremendous job for NBC Sports Philadelphia, football analyst, multiple different platforms. Speaking of linebacker, you mentioned linebacker. Unfortunately, Kobe Dean out for the season with the patella tendon tear in a short-term situation. Obviously, if this was week 2, they'd have a long way to go. Can you cover up? Can you make up for that loss for only a couple more games with Oren Burks? I know he's not a good football player, but can you kind of almost hide him in a way for the next couple of games and survive?
You definitely can hide him because, Vic Fangio is the king now. Those guys really are under his tutelage, and he calls so many different defenses that you really can't get a beat on what he's doing, which allows them then, to make a lot of plays. So, it'll be Burks and, maybe a little more Trot also being out there to really help him out, at that linebacker position because Dean was playing at an all-star level. This last game before he got hurt, he had like 4 or 5 tackles, from that point. So, he was going to have a great game, but him being out, guys got to step up. I like Oren Burks. He's one of those guys that, a veteran player. He made the first play of the game last week. I see him consistently doing it this week. We won't have the same level of consistency we had with Dean because he was a signal caller. He was just such a great athlete, and he was, I don't know if you want to call him Batman or Robin when it comes to, him and Vaughn, but those guys played great together. But, somebody's going to have to step up, and I think it's going to be between Burks and, Trot Jr. Trot Jr. playing pretty well, too. You got to mention him as far as getting a couple reps also.
Barry, you look back to Sunday, and there were quite a few missed tackles in that game, which is something that, they don't do much wrong, but this is something that kind of came to everybody's attention. Even Fangio said he didn't like what he saw. How much do they have to clean that up going into Sunday?
Well, it's got to be, you got to cross your T's and dot your I's. You got to play fundamental football. And, fundamental is tackling, and they got to get back to tackling the way they're supposed to tackle. And I kind of understand it. They had a pretty good running back they were playing against. And, he was, he was good enough that, he made some guys think about coming up and tackling. But, I just really think, just one game. And I don't think it's something, that you're going to have to worry about. A lot of those players that, missed tackles didn't play last week. So now that they played this week, they'll get back to, playing at the consistent they've been playing at. This defense is real, man. So, at this point, even with Dean being out, I don't see them, missing a beat because they are so consistent. Vic Fangio has taught all those guys to be very, very technique conscious when they're out there playing. So, I'm not going to worry about it. I shouldn't have to worry about it because Vic's going to make sure they go out there and play consistently. But at the end of the day, this is playoff football, win or go home. So I think they'll play consistently this game.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on with us, Barrett, carving out some time. Excited about you. I'll see you for Birds Huddle on Sunday, and everybody obviously see you all week. We're
He's
getting
fired
close.
up again.
Getting close for playoff week 2. Appreciate you, buddy.
I appreciate it, guys. Hey, let's go, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. Thanks so much. That's Barrett Brooks on the Comcast Business Hotline. You see him do a tremendous job for NBC Sports Philadelphia, and he has a ring.
Man, it's Tuesday, and he's ready to go.
Already ready to go. already ready to go. He did not seem concerned.
No, he doesn't. I
Does not seem concerned.
I think he really looks at like the linebacker position as just like a flip flop. I brought up the tackling, and you know what? Clean up what you have to clean up. I understand it was Josh Jacobs too.
Big boy,
not an easy guy to bring down.
Right. Again, it's easy for us to be brave with somebody else's
but
body.
I brought that up to you.
I wouldn't be tackling him.
I brought that up to you. That's like Saquon coming out. You don't want to tackle those legs.
We were talking about that. Like, I ain't tackling him. A couple times to G, who's been a great tackler on wide receivers, didn't want no parts of that part.
Sometimes you run into
with the arms on those.
Sometimes you run into the soft pillows. Other times you hit into a brick wall and you don't like it.
Yeah, you can tell Cooper was like, you know what, on this one, hey, Quinion, where you at? I'm going to guide him to you. I'm going to push him towards you. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want more of this content, make sure you like and subscribe. And you know you can do that kind of over here if you want more of the best show ever.